same. So basically when we're all done, I'm going to end the stream and it'll finalize the upload and everything, which usually only takes maybe 30 seconds at the most.
Right.
And it's all done.
Yep.
So
got it.
That's it.
Yep.
Just so you know. Okay, cool. Well, I've opened up the stream. We're letting people start to roll on in here, and we'll get things underway here in a moment. I just got to make sure that I got all my ducks in a row in StreamYard so I can switch as need be. And then MachineSociety.ai and Computer World. Do you want me to mention in
Machine Society is enough. I'd really like people to subscribe to the newsletter, and from there, I'll always have links to my other stuff.
Right. They'll find everything else. Okay, cool. Right on. Okay. Well, I think without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and put you on the backstage, as they say, remove you from the stage momentarily. I'll do the top of the show. And then, usually the show lands at around 50 minutes to an hour. So we'll just kind of, I sent you the list of all the stories. We've got a bunch to talk about, and that'll be it.
Great.
And my dog will occasionally walk into the room and distract me. And that's just the way it goes. Hi, buddy. Hold on. Let me take off your collar. That looks uncomfortable. All right, there we go. Okie dokie. Stand by. I will kick this underway. Let's see here, everybody. Thank you for being here. It's good to see y'all. Hey, Tay. Hey, Daniel. Good to have you here. And everyone else who's not logged into the chat. All right, stand by. Here we go. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of AI Inside. This is the show where we take a look at the AI that is layered throughout so many things, like a tiramisu, a delicious tiramisu, or a lasagna, however you want to look at it. If it's your main or if it's your dessert, either way, I'm all for it. I'm one of your hosts, Jason Howell. My co-host normally is Jeff Jarvis. He's actually traveling right now. I think he's in Germany, in fact. So he is very much out of the pocket, which I would say would preclude him from being on the episode today is the case, but that would not preclude our guest from being on the episode from Bali, of all places, but not on a beach, Mike Elgan. I'm a little disappointed that you aren't podcasting, like literally sitting on the beach.
Well, first of all, I'm in Baja, not Bali.
Oh, sorry, Baja. Okay. The other four-letter B place.
I am literally on the beach. I'm in a house that is literally on the sand. So I'm looking at the beach that's 50 feet away right here. So
that does me no good. I want to feel the beach right now. Believe me, today of all days, I want to be on a beach.
Yeah,
that's exactly where I want to be. Well, it's good to see you, man. How you been? Of course, MachineSociety.ai is where everybody needs to know about, to go and check out your writing, the newsletter, which is fantastic. I subscribe to that, get that on a regular basis. Yeah. Yeah, it's good to see you. Had you on a handful of months ago and had a lot of fun, and with Jeff out, you were the perfect fill-in. So as best as Jeff could be filled in for.
Another ill-tempered old white guy. That's what you need to fill that slot. Somebody complain with a lot of complaints and
and a lot of opinions on AI. I think at the end of the day, that's the most important part.
Yes.
Mike, it's really great to have you here, and I'm excited to talk about everything that we will talk about. 1 second before we get started, just to let everybody know, big thank you to those of you who support the show on Patreon. That's patreon.com/AI Inside Show. Rocode is one of our supporters. Thank you, Rocode, and thank you to so many other people who support us. So, head on over to patreon.com/AI Inside Show, and you can throw a little financial support our way, and we really appreciate it. It enables us to continue doing this show on a weekly basis, and we love that. And if you happen to be watching live while we record, welcome, first of all, but be sure to subscribe to the podcast. That way, if you miss it live, you won't actually miss the episode entirely. So go to AIinside.show and you can subscribe to the show from there. With all that being said, it's time to get into the news. And yes, today is post-election day, but I think I'm still a little fresh. So I think most of the news today has absolutely nothing to do with the election. And I don't know about you, Mike. I'm okay with that.
Yes.
We could talk
Yeah,
about.
it's nice to disappear into the tech news. A lot of our colleagues, and I think yourself included, do a really good job of staying away from politics. I find it, public commentary on politics. I find it sometimes irresistible. Sometimes I
Yeah.
get my act together and I keep my mouth shut and stay in my lane. But we got a lot of colleagues who never talk about politics, and I don't know how they do it.
Yeah, it's a hard one.
Yeah.
It's because sometimes it feels really important and feels very prescient and now.
Yeah.
And I mean, that certainly is the feeling that I have today. I mean, it's,
Hmm.
I think if we are talking about politics, I will just say I'm really curious to see with the influence that it seems that big tech has in the upcoming Trump White House here in
Hmm.
the US, namely Elon Musk. I mean, we know Elon
Hmm.
Musk is going to have some sort of interaction, or at least that seems to be what's being signaled at this point.
Hmm.
It's going to be really interesting to see how that influences kind of regulation around technology, regulation about artificial intelligence, the kind of injection of AI, or the open arms kind of nature to
Hmm.
AI as we
Yeah.
enter the next 4 years, at a time where AI is just exploding in
Yeah.
progress, progressing the technology and everything. It's kind of
Right.
a interesting moment, and I don't even know how to predict what that will look like.
Yeah. A worst case scenario, he puts Barron in charge of U.S. AI policy. Barron Trump, his son. Every
Okay.
time somebody asks him about
He's
AI, he says, "Oh, the cyber. My son Barron is like so good with a computer." So I don't think that's going to happen. The,
there.
the worst
I
case
don't
scenario
think
is
so.
that I think that the signals around Elon Musk are that he wants Elon Musk to do to the federal government what he did to Twitter, which is basically
Right.
just fire most of the people in government. And so that could prove to be even worse than Twitter. I mean, I don't know. I don't want
Mm,
to. We probably don't want to talk about politics, but I think that it's a huge mistake to put Elon Musk anywhere near the federal budget.
yeah. Yeah. Going to be real interesting. That's for sure. Buckle up, y'all. There's going to be some interesting stories coming over the next handful of years. Whew, okay, well then, why don't we talk about some AI news? And actually, the first story that we'll talk about today is something that had been kind of teased and kind of a long time coming. We knew that eventually OpenAI was going to
Hmm.
launch its search product, and it has done that as of last week. It unveiled ChatGPT Search,
Hmm.
which is essentially its AI powered search engine. It's integrated into ChatGPT. It's actually running a specialized version of GPT 4.0,
Yeah,
and essentially gives you, the what we've seen. Like I'm a user of Perplexity, so I've been using
me
Perplexity
too.
for many months now, and I'm
Yes,
actually a really big fan of how it tackles this
yes,
very feature.
yes.
And I have not used the ChatGPT Search product yet.
Right.
It's only available for paid users right now. But what are
Yeah.
your thoughts on the kind of convergence of search and AI right now? Because I know Jeff has felt, feels and voices his kind of I don't know. His opinion is a little bit on the negative. Like, I don't know that the peanut butter and the chocolate should mix together. My
Yeah.
experience with Perplexity has been, it's actually been incredibly useful. But I'm curious to
Yes.
know what your thoughts are.
Well, Perplexity is a RAG tool. It's a retrieval augmented generation tool, and I agree with you. I think it's very good. It does hallucinate. It does give you
Of course,
weird answers. And sorry about that.
that's right.
It's windy here. We're in sort of the kite surfing capital of Mexico here,
Okay.
but uh, but basically, what that means is that they have their own version of PageRank, literally the Google tool that for searching, but the Perplexity version is optimized for better sources. So it's more sensitive
Hmm.
about the quality of the source, which is one reason why it's slightly better than Google search. And it gives you the results. Like if it'll search for 10 things and it'll give you the links to those things, just like a search engine, more or less.
Totally.
ChatGPT search, ironically, is not a RAG tool. It's kind of like a RAG tool. It basically uses Bing primarily because of the association between OpenAI and Microsoft, but it
Hmm.
uses other search engines and other tools. Basically, it cobbles together uh, the information, and instead of basically having this sort of spidered index, which is of course how search works. It will do the search at real time when you go to do a query on ChatGPT Search, and then a lot of how it works is not well known. It's we haven't been able to dissect it. They haven't really announced the specifics, and it's also probably a moving target. They have their own web crawler called GPTbot, which basically crawls a web very quickly. So I think they're cobbling together different things, and it's a little bit, for the most part, it's less of a competitor to search and more of a thing that's built on top of search.
Yeah, augment.
Yes, but I think the bigger picture is that traditional search that has no AI component is dead man walking, basically, because everybody's going to want to use AI because AI can put things together better for you, and RAG tools like Perplexity, and there are a few others, and ChatGPT Search presumably will bring together multiple sources and sort of summarize it for you, and that's more useful than here's a bunch of links you have to go do. Now you have a homework assignment where you have to go read through these and figure out on your own what's happening. One of the things I like to do, by the way, and just before we move off the topic, and this is a little bit off topic, which is that I'm also a fan of Google's Notebook LM. I know that I'm sure you've used it, but basically Notebook LM is a thing where you're supposed to keep your notes there. But in reality, what it really is you can just dump all this documents in there, and then you can ask questions of the documents, and it'll get its information from the documents that you upload. So one of the things I like to do is, let's say I'm researching a technical topic, and I just want to know, I just want to learn, right? So it's not something I'm doing for publishing or something like that. I just want to learn something on a highly technical topic. So I'll go to Perplexity AI typically, and I'll say, tell me all about it. Give me a bullet point list of all the facts around this, or the most important things, or summarize this, or something like that. And it'll give me its result, and it'll make claims in there. And then I take the PDFs produced by the scientists or the researchers or whatever, and I upload those into Notebook LM. And then I use Notebook LM to fact check Perplexity. So I'll copy a claim made by Perplexity, paste it into Notebook LM and say, is this accurate? And Notebook LM has never failed me in terms of telling me it'll say, yes, this is accurate, blah, blah, blah. And it give me more, or no, not quite, or almost accurate, but here's the problem with it. And so I would never recommend that anybody just use any AI-based tool to get facts and information and just take those facts and information and just believe them
and just run.
You always want to do it against it. But Notebook LM is a great fact-checking tool if you have the primary documents.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's so interesting. Notebook LM is incredibly powerful. And I think that is really the kind of the big powerful use case of these services is when you start to really get a better understanding of what each one of them is good for between them, so that you can pop in and out of them as needed and pull this output into this other thing that's good for this very specific thing. I mean, eventually, maybe that gets easier. I mean, Perplexity certainly having a lot of different aspects to it and a lot of different models that, you can use within it kind of alleviates some of that pain a little bit, allowing you to kind of stay in it. But what's interesting is, as you were talking about, the list of blue links and, kind of heading back into the search mindset, the list of blue links that you then have to work for to really get the information. It's so funny that to me, it's only taken me a year of using these tools to the degree that I do for that to feel like actual work. Meanwhile, for the last couple of decades, that was just the internet.
Right.
That was just the way it was. And now it's like, oh man, but it's so much, that kind of hurdle, that speed bump isn't quite nearly as painful anymore.
That's right.
Once you get more comfortable with the tools and understanding what they're good for and what they're, what to look out for.
Well, like all powerful technologies, it makes things better and worse at the same time. So, people are afraid that this is the new Wikipedia. So students will just go to a chat, a generative AI chatbot and say, write my essay for me. And the whole value of an essay is that it's hard to do. It's the work that you put into it is the whole point of the essay. No, it's not going to be published. Nobody's going to read, professor's barely going to read it. You'll never read it again. It has no function other than your work and your labor and the mental process of figuring out how to write this essay. And if ChatGPT just writes it for you, there's no point of of even assigning it. So there's a dumbing down factor with these tools. At the same time, for people who are seriously curious and seriously interested about learning, it's the greatest learning tool ever created. And I personally have learned so much. I've gained so much more knowledge from using these tools simply because I'm always asking, and then I can come back with a follow-up question, or I can accept one of their follow-up questions. And it's so readily available. I'm also one of the people who believes that the thing that's going to replace smartphones within 10 years, probably closer to 10 years than 1 year, is glasses, AI glasses that are, AR, augmented reality, AI based glasses. And so in a context like that, the audio information output is going to be more valuable than the visual information that it can produce. And so we're just going to be talking to an agent, and it'll be agentic AI, which will be goal based. So we'll be able to basically tell it to go figure something out, or, every time I'm near something, tell me, and all that kind of stuff. And so the whole paradigm of traditional search engines where you get a list of results is totally incompatible with glasses.
For sure.
Walking around. And so we need to get to a point where we have non-hallucinating agents that give us good information that can go beyond that and actually go do things for us. As we're just creeping into this world where LLM-based tools can actually use our computers and open apps and figure things out and all that kind of stuff. So this is going to really accelerate the replacement of smartphones with glasses, because if the agent we're talking to through our glasses can go use a computer, can search the internet, can go to websites, can log in on our behalf, do things for us, then we're going to really like that. That's going to be really great. And the whole process of sitting down at a laptop and using applications and going to websites will seem a little slow, and it'll seem a little bit like Google search seems right now. Right. It's like we still do it. It's still useful, but it feels like a kind of throwback-ish if you've been using
a bygone era.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's where we're headed.
Yeah, interesting. Gosh, I feel like we just need to have conversations like this instead of talk about news. The question that come up for me around that is, you said hallucination free. Yeah. And I actually now we're totally off topic, but that's okay. I don't mind at all. I think today, you know what, anything goes. Right. I was driving a couple of days ago and heard an ad on the radio, and it was talking about an AI service, and that was one of the things they were saying, hallucination free. Yes. And I mean, but that seems like, isn't that an unattainable goal? I mean, no, I don't think maybe it's a goal. It's a great goal to have, right. But I just found it interesting that they were claiming hallucination free. And I just kind of am of the assumption that that's part of the oxygen. It just happens. Yes.
Well,
how can you claim that?
So first of all, the experience we all have with LLMs is we go to ChatGPT, right? We go and we search it like it's, ask it a question. Or, if you're better at prompt engineering, you'll say, you're a world-class scientist who knows everything about biology. Then, and then you say what the question is about biology. But that's the all-purpose nature of that tool, I think, is going to fade into the background. Like, we're not going to be using tools like that. I think that the next phase, and again, this is, years away, 3, 4, 5, 6 years, I don't know how many years in the future, we'll be using agentic AI swarms. And this gets really sci-fi-ish, but basically one of the tools that OpenAI has come out with is called Swarm. It's a not ready for production, not ready for primetime tool, but what it's designed to do is coordinate special purpose LLMs, essentially. So imagine if you had an LLM that's like a RAG that can search the internet and make sense of that. And another one that's great with language translation. Another one that can make pictures, and another one can do this. And you have 30 of those, right? And then the agents themselves, or there's like a central agent that can direct and bring the specialized agents into the action, transfer the memory of like what the interaction has been so far, so they're on board with what the project is, and figure things out. So I think, let me give you an example. Let's say you had you work for Twit forever. All Twit content, all the transcripts for all Twit shows should be poured into an LLM, and then you would be able to query that without reference to the training data, right? And so if you did something like that, you would very likely have right off the bat a non-hallucinating chatbot, because it would tell you, like you'd say, well, what did Jason say in
Got it.
the year 2009 about blah blah blah, and it has no bad data. It just has unless the transcript is flawed or whatever, but it's bad data. It's the hoovering up of all information that gives us the biases, that gives us the misinformation, because there's bias and misinformation in the data. And so if you have little agents, each of which is very specific, and is brought into service as a specialist, that's going to give you a much better result than these all-purpose, all data-based chatbots, I think.
Right. Yeah. Specific kind of aligned data to and that's probably part of why something like Notebook LM is so impressive, right? Because you can feed it exactly what it needs to know, or exactly what you're querying around, and you don't have to expect or assume that you're going to get anything that falls outside of that data set.
It'll give you good data. The thing that Notebook LM, and in fact, many chatbot, LLM based tools suffer from, is they can't really tell. I mean, sometimes they do an impressively good job, but they can't really tell what's important. So, I know people who are authors, and they put the digital version of their book into and say, give me the most important points, and they're always disappointed by what the AI thinks are the most important things. Because on what basis would it know what's important? Only humans can really understand, and to a certain extent, meaning is something that's personal to us, but it'll be a while before they're really good at that sort of thing. And sometimes when you ask an LLM to summarize something,
I was just going to
emphasize secondary points that are not really.
Totally. I've certainly had that where it's like, oh my God, this video or whatever that I'm watching on YouTube, this is so rich in information. I could sit here for the next 45 minutes, an hour, and make my notes or ask the thing to summarize it. And, I get the summary, and it's like, okay, well, you got some of the stuff, but you didn't get it. How do I get you to be comprehensive? Like, just be comprehensive.
Well, so back to ChatGPT Search, OpenAI has relationships with news organizations, like with traditional news organizations. I forgot the list, but it's like AP and a bunch of others.
It's Reuters, AP. I can't remember. Axel Springer. Yeah,
but real news organizations, traditional news organizations, and this is gold for understanding what's important, because in traditional journalism, you write in what's called reverse pyramid style. So the first sentence is in a straight news story, not a feature, not an opinion piece, but like in a regular, like reported news story. The first sentence is the summary of the thing, right? It's like, for example, if you were to do a news story about the election, right? You wouldn't start with, Minnesota, blah, blah, blah. You would start with Donald Trump won the election and blah, blah, blah. And that would be the first sentence. The second sentence would be the second most key thing. So so to a certain extent, traditional news stories are already coded for priority, just based on chronological order. So that's really valuable stuff. A video, on the other hand, a conversation like this video, right? This video and all other podcasts and most other video systems, the nuggets are just come up somewhere. And there's gold in there, but it's not the first thing you say. The first thing you say is just like, hey, go to my Patreon. So, you know what I mean? So it's like, that's not the point. That's not the main point of what we're doing. Everybody should do that, but that's not the main point of the content of this podcast. So it's not worded that way, but news is. So that's actually a good thing, and they should take advantage of that. And I'm sure they are. Yeah.
Indeed. And I think anyone using it would expect for that as well. So, interesting stuff there. You shared a couple of links which we can talk about now. First of all, the word of the day obviously is heterogeneous pertained transformers. also
Yes.
known as HPT. Maybe that's not the
Yes.
word of today, but
Yes.
anyways,
But
tell me a little
certainly
bit
a
about this.
word.
Yeah, right. So research. Yeah, tell me a little bit about this.
Okay, so MIT researchers are tackling the problem of robot training. So robot
Hmm.
training is really, really hard, and the reason is basically what you do. Look, if you've ever seen, like, I recommend that everybody go look at videos of the Tesla uh, assembly line. These robots are amazing. They pick up whole cars and move them over here, and then they're like, these arms come in, and they're like at high speed with incredible precision are bolting things together. And there are humans there
Hmm.
kind of facilitating things, but to a very large extent, industrial robots can be very capable. The amount of training it takes to get robots to be that precise and to be flexible enough to deal with the small little variations in what comes across the assembly line is very, very time consuming and difficult. First of all of the robot companies have their own sort of programming language that's proprietary that they use. So if you're building a factory and you're using robots from four different companies, you need staff who are proficient in four different programming languages, and they use these little things that are called teach pendants. They're basically little handheld devices that have this like Taco Bell like cash registered like interface where they can control the robot and make tweaks in the programming. Another way to program robots is they have a human teller operating a robot. So the human is doing the stuff, and that gets some initial data that they can then download into the robot, and then they have to tweak it.
Okay.
But it's time consuming. It's really hard. So they had this incredible genius idea. What if robot software worked like ChatGPT? So
Hmm.
the idea is they take all this data from robotics. They take the programs that have been written to control robots. They take the sensor data from robots. They take the visual data from robots. They take the simulation data from robots. They encode it so that it's something that can be read by a transformer, right? So they encode it so that it's basically the equivalent of text, the way ChatGPT uses text. And then it works, and then they use an LLM basically to process all this data, so that right off the bat the robot already has a lot of knowledge. And so far they're able to get it to sort of 80% quality, 90% quality, which
Okay.
is not good enough for a robot, but it's a
Hmm.
starting point
Hmm.
for the robotics. Um, and and the idea is they would have something like a chat gpt for robots that they could download into any robot, and
A
right off the bat
universal robot brain.
exactly, and right off the
Yeah,
bat the robot would have some knowledge and skill about how to do things. They wouldn't have to
that's
Every
cool.
robot wouldn't have to start from scratch. It's a genius idea. One problem with it is that you look at something like ChatGPT, which basically has all knowledge known to mankind poured into
Hmm.
this
Hmm.
thing, which it's using, and the more data, the better. Well, there's not that much robot data out there. I mean, there's not nowhere near as much robot data to be had when you compare it to all written knowledge in
Hmm.
everywhere, and so that's a problem. So they'll have to figure out how to produce more robot data. And then there are also, this is early days for this technology, but I think this is kind of where we're going with this technology. And it's just an absolutely brilliant system, and they're already having some success with it. So I just think that's kind of interesting. It's not good news for people who are afraid of robots and who fear that Skylink or whatever will go online, and the Terminator robots from the future will come back and kill us all, because this is totally like going to help that whole scenario. But it's great news for industries who want to accelerate and reduce the costs around automation. So it's really, really interesting information, and I think that your audience would certainly like to know about it, because
For sure.
the way to look at it is basically like ChatGPT for robots.
Yeah, I think what comes to mind for me is that so much of what we've seen in the last couple of years around LLM technology and generative AI and everything is that, and there's a couple of examples in today's rundown, is that artificial intelligence in the way that we're seeing it used right now in situations like this is very democratizing. It opens the playing
Yeah.
field. It lowers
Yeah.
the barrier for people who, prior to this technology, you had to have X amount of, of years of education and
Hmm.
all of this experience and everything to do this thing.
Yeah.
And then here you have this like unified language, this LLM that in some ways I would imagine this kind of lowers the barrier for kind of robotic brains essentially and
It's
makes
absolutely
makes it a lot
designed to
more
do that.
accessible.
Yeah, absolutely. It's designed to do that. And of course, this
Mhm.
is a good thing and a bad thing depending on who's doing it and for what purpose. You
For
talk
sure.
about
Always.
democratizing things like, it's great for, it's great for somebody who's trying to run a small business and who's doing a lot of coding and needs to do some coding in a language that they're not that proficient in, like, their LLM based tools that help them write code and to
Hmm.
debug their code and all that kind of stuff. But it's also very useful for malicious cyber attackers who it used to be like you get this like illiterate email saying it was from your bank and you'd be like, come on, give me a break, and you dismiss it. Now it
Right.
can be perfect, and it
Hmm.
can have the same logo and same look and feel as the bank's email, and then it can be used for coding malware and things like that. So it's both good and bad. Like I said before, it makes everything better and worse at the same time.
For sure. For sure. Well, speaking of robotics, you also wrote a couple of articles
Yeah.
for Computer World that you shared with me in the last couple of months.
Yep.
Your most recent article, I think, was for like a week and a half ago. But
Hmm.
and it's all about humanoid robots, which
Hmm.
I saw the We Robot event, and
Hmm.
I've seen Tesla events in years past where he's been
Yeah.
talking about the humanoid robot, and some of them have been a little disingenuous in previous years. This year seemed
Mm.
like a little bit more of a step forward, but still you're kind of like, how autonomous are these things
Yes.
really? And
Right.
do we really need this humanoid robotic future? Like, what problems
Yes.
is it solving actually?
Right.
And so share a
I'm
little bit of your thoughts
super
there.
I'm super against humanoid robots, and I
Yeah.
ask questions about them that I don't hear anybody else asking. And so let's start with the state of where humanoid robots are. They're actually being used in actual factories, and I've got a list here. So Amazon is using a robot called Digit from Agility
Hmm.
Robotics, and it's basically picking up bins and walking over, shuffling over, and putting them somewhere else. Right? It's a $100,000 robot. That's not what the cost is, but for training and everything else, it probably adds up to $100,000 to move bins 20 feet. Mercedes-Benz is collaborating with Aptronic to use an Apollo humanoid robot in its production lines. BMW is using the Figure 2 robot, which is one of the more advanced ones. Hyundai is using it actually is the company that bought Boston Dynamics and owns Boston
Hmm.
Dynamics, and it's using Atlas in factories. Tesla is using Optimus robots to sort batteries, and it goes on. They're showcasing these robots, and just to be clear, a humanoid robot is a robot that's roughly the size and shape of a human being, that has a head, that has two arms, that has five fingers, that has knees, that has feet, and walks with bipedal locomotion and so on. And the companies that make these robots say that the reason for humanoid robots is because we operate in spaces designed for people. And if you
Hmm.
make a robot that's the size and shape and bends in the same way as a person, they can operate in those spaces. For example, a humanoid robot can open a car door and get in the car and sit in the car and put on a seatbelt. It can sit in a chair. It can walk upstairs. It can do all kinds of things like that. And this reason seems to make sense, but it doesn't explain the drive, the desire to make a humanoid robot. For example, it doesn't explain the faces they put on robots. Why do they have to have a head that's shaped like a human head? Why does it neck turn the way a human neck turns? Why two
Because they
arms?
want
Why
us
not
to
four
care
arms? Why
about
not
it.
20
Yeah.
fingers?
Yeah.
And so
Totally.
the thing that freaks me out about humanoid robots is that their main purpose seems to be to delude people. So if there have been a bunch of studies conducted that found that humanoid robots are often perceived as human-like, whereas non-humanoid robots are perceived as objects. Humanoid robots are perceived as social entities. Research in Finland found that that when people make eye contact with a humanoid robot that has eyes, they elicit the psychological, chemical thing that happens when we make eye contact with another person or with a dog, for example. Dogs and humans can make eye contact, and one of the reasons we bond with dogs is there's a connection there. There's a psychological connection by both species. And when people look at humanoid robots, they have something like that happens, but not when they look at a non-humanoid robot.
Right.
And
Wall-E.
it goes on and on. There's all kinds of things. People tend to think that humanoid robots are more likely to be sentient, to have feelings, to have inner thoughts, and so on, than non-humanoid robots. And so at the end of the day, building a humanoid robot is basically just a way to hijack the human psychology for the benefit of the robot. We don't want to harm it. We consider its opinions. We're willing to take orders from it. I don't know what it is, but basically that's the main effect of a humanoid robot, to trick the human mind into thinking it's something other than what it is, which is in fact a machine, a device, or a tool, just like this. It's just non-sentient, non-emotional, non-human, non-animal entity. It's a machine. And so I basically urge people to consider this whole idea. Well, like, why do that? You can make much more efficient robots. And then the other,
and we have been for a very long time. You point out, like, it's not like these things haven't existed. They've done,
right.
They do pretty well. So, up until now.
So my most recent column on the subject is like, by the time they get, like, so Elon Musk said, oh, it'll mow your lawn, it'll babysit your kids, like at the Tesla event.
The walking the dog one was my favorite. It was like, no, wait a minute. Wait, I don't want that. Like,
yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, to me also, the mowing the lawn thing. So imagine a humanoid robot out there pushing a mower. We have robot mowers. They're like Roombas.
Right.
They just go around and trim your lawn. That's a perfectly designed thing. They're inexpensive. And then the walking the dog thing, that's the other point I make in this article. The reason we get a dog is so that we can walk them, we can take care of them, we have a relationship with them. That's the whole point. Like,
connection.
If you don't want to walk your dog, don't get a dog, because that's what it is to own a dog. You walk them. It's great exercise. Like, it's the whole thing. Like, that's the idea that it's going to babysit your kids. It's like, no, don't have kids if you want to, outsource the job of parenting to a robot. So
I have a couple of dogs. I wonder how they would be if there was a robot walking them. I'm not certain they would be okay with that.
Yeah, they might just bark at it. It's like,
right.
And so anyway, I just think we're going headlong into this thing. Science fiction's been telling us for a century.
Yeah.
By the way, the very first robot. Well, that's not true. One of the very first robots in fiction was called TikTok, and it was in the Wizard of Oz.
Oh, no kidding.
Series. Yeah, but for a century, we've learned that robots in the future will be these humanoid robots, and in Star Trek, Data was like this. They had this whole courtroom thing about whether he was sentient or whether he was a real thing, and basically they were really pushing the idea that he was just like a person, and all that kind of stuff. But it's like, why are we doing this? Why do we want machines to join society and sort of like be and basically replace the people in our lives? I think a certain type of person wants that. And I think those people fall into two categories. One is the Mark Zuckerberg types who have a personality that's kind of like, I don't know, on the spectrum or something, and just kind of like not super like into people, always, sort of think more logically and don't think super socially. And then the other people are like people like Elon Musk, because if you create something that is essentially a human, then you are essentially a god.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think there's a strong desire by some of the tech narcissists to be gods. They want, Elon Musk, and there's some other people saying similar things. There will be more humanoid robots than people on the planet at some point. I'm sure they would love nothing more than that, because they're the ones who create them. They control them.
Exactly
slave army, right? And the whole thing just gives me the creeps, and I want nothing to do with it. I like robotic everything. I want little robots all over the house. I want everything to be robotic. Right. And I don't want to lift a finger, and I don't want to do any work, but I don't want like a person walking around.
Yeah, no, that's
a machine, right? It's just,
I don't see that as near term as, I think people like Elon Musk might assume. I can't imagine a life, during my lifetime, walking into the other room to see a humanoid robot standing there
Yeah.
waiting to serve me food, or I don't
Yeah.
know what it would even do or why I would even need that. Like what is
Right.
the purpose,
You could build a kitchen counter that would make food very
Yeah.
efficiently and wonderfully,
Right.
that has no face and no, like, nothing, and doesn't
Yeah.
talk to you. Just make my breakfast, and don't talk to me, and
Yeah.
I want a robotic doors and windows, and I want a self-driving car, and I want all that stuff. Those are all robots, right? Those are all robotic devices. I want lots and lots and lots of robotic devices. I don't want a robotic person. I want
Hmm.
to reserve my humanity for other people and for pets and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Reserve the humanity. I like that. That's
Yeah,
true. That's part of what, that is what makes us human, and what is so beautiful
that's
about
right.
the human experience
That's
is
right.
that aspect, and
Yeah.
getting rid of it and replacing it with a robot.
Yeah.
Not
Let's
not
not
all it's
replace
cracked up to
people
be.
if we can avoid it. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, indeed. All right, we're going to take a super quick break. And then when we come back, we got a few more news stories to talk about. That's coming up in a second. All right, let's see here. What else do we have here? Anthropic posted on their blog highlighting its company line about AI safety. This is definitely a topic that comes up very often on this
Mhm.
show, and I know Jeff Jarvis has some strong opinions about this. So I'm curious to hear your thoughts. The post discusses the need for targeted AI regulation. They say to prevent, catastrophic risk, that sort of stuff. Anthropic, of course, as a company,
Mhm.
is
Mhm.
known for being the kind of risk aware AI
Mhm.
company,
Yeah.
responsible AI, throwing that in air quotes. But to a certain degree, kind of touching on what you were just talking
Mhm.
about, the
Yeah.
people in power, the who have the ability to shape the thing because they say, oh, there's a need for regulation here. We're the ones to do it right. So
Mhm.
let's regulate them, because and
Right.
we know so much about this that we can inform you on how to do this the right way. And this,
Right.
this post kind of seems to fall into that category. I don't know what your
Yeah.
thoughts are on
It's
that.
also the so I had three basic points on this. One is that
Yeah.
the cynical point is that companies that are already, and Anthropic is one of the more established AI companies.
Yes,
They
for
love
sure.
to call for regulation because it's both virtue signaling and it's also a barrier to entry for small startups that want
Indeed.
to challenge them. So that's one thing to be aware of, and you see this all the time in tech in Silicon Valley, is the big companies like, oh yeah, we should have strong regulations. It would basically just put the smaller startups out of business, and they can afford to
Mhm.
pay for the dealing with the regulation. That's one thing. The second thing is that, yeah, we do need regulations. I mean, the things
Mhm.
that Anthropic is concerned with is, like, people making pandemic diseases and in their basement, and nuclear bombs, and who knows what. Like, so it any sort of like roadblock to malicious activity using AI, which of course greatly magnifies human ability, would be nice. And the third thing is that, the problem with laws is that the lawbreakers are not going to follow the laws, right? So they're, it's like
Sure.
the North Koreans are not going to follow the law. The cyber criminals
Mhm.
are not going to follow the law. So you basically hamper the law-abiding citizens and nobody else. But still, still think it's better. Anything that slows the progress of malicious activity using AI is probably a good thing.
Well, and then it also kind of calls into question, another topic that comes up often is kind of the open source aspect or
Yeah.
avenue of artificial intelligence. Of course, Meta,
Right.
a large part of what it's doing. We've called it open-ish because it's,
Yes. It's open
it's
adjacent.
open. It's open adjacent, but it's opener than a lot of
Yeah.
the other, models out there, and a lot of the other strategies and everything.
I
And
think it's
something
funny.
like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
something
What
like
happened with
this
Meta?
is
Just
kind of calling that into question, right? Like,
exactly.
if you can't control, if you could not be stopped from being fine tuned, for example,
Right.
which is part of what Anthropic is written here, it would
Yeah.
preclude them from being released at all. So then you're saying
Right.
goodbye to open systems or open models entirely, and is that
Which
okay?
I think it is, and I think it depends. I mean, what happened with Meta is really kind of funny, actually. It's funny in a dark and scary way. Basically, they have Llama. It's open source. They say it's not open source. Basically,
Hmm.
it's available for anyone to download, but
Right.
they have terms and conditions. In those terms and conditions, they have a bunch of things you're not supposed to use it for, including military uses. Okay, so the Chinese military just downloaded it and started using it for military uses. So and so they don't give a rat's hiney about terms and conditions at the PLA, right? They just it's a
Hmm.
powerful
Hmm.
tool, and they're using it for to you
Yeah.
know
And it's
they're using it
accessible.
to
Yeah.
prepare for their war against the United States over Taiwan, right? And so
Yeah.
and so quickly Meta said, "Oh, we're partnering with the Pentagon to like let them use it for military uses." And so the whole thing about don't use it for military uses is just thrown out the window. Everybody's now going to be using Llama for military uses. So what does it mean to have terms and conditions, and what does it mean to have something you call open source? None of it means much really at all. And I think what really should exist, if you are serious about preventing powerful AI tools from being used for dangerous military and other uses, is it has to be that you can't use it for those uses somehow. There has to be something that locks it down. Law won't stop the law breakers, and terms of service won't stop anybody. So I think that we need another approach to this, um, that basically prevents the use of powerful AI tools. On the other hand, there are thousands of LLMs, and they're all getting better all the time. And so we're heading for a world where AI is going to be perfectly ubiquitous, available to everyone, the good, bad, and the ugly. And there's really not a whole lot laws, terms of service, or anything else will do to stop its use.
No, it feels like the cat is already out of the bag and of
Yeah,
that
yeah,
regard. And yeah, so that's interesting.
yeah.
Somewhat related to this kind of regulation discussion is in the EU. You know, they've got the AI Act that's set to come into effect in January
Right.
and over the course of the next 2 years. And just thought this was interesting. There's a
Mhm.
tool called the LLM checker that's used to test models for compliance with the AI Act. As
Mhm.
we are only a couple of months away at this point, it's just right around
Mhm.
the corner. And the tool showed
Yeah.
just how poorly many of the models are actually adhering
Yeah.
to it at this stage. No single major model would make the cut
Right.
if that happened right now. And
Yeah.
yeah, not performing very well according to that, anyways.
Yeah. It just seems like that kind of regulation is not. First of all, it's not the right kind of. It's not the right tool for the job. I don't know what is, but
Yeah,
like that,
right.
you know,
I guess
I
that's the
spent a
big
lot of time in.
question. Yeah.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time in Europe, and it's like some of the regulations around things are just so onerous and so burdensome to just ordinary users. And this is not about AI. Like just every single website you go to, you have to
Mhm.
agree to the cookies and all that kind of stuff, or disagree with
Yeah,
the
it's
cookies or
exhausting.
one or the other. And it's like I open 1,000 web pages a day. It's like really a problem. And then there's all these other things. So there's a bunch of U.S. sites that you can't see in Europe unless you have a whatchamacallit, express
Like a
VPN type
VPN
thing.
or mhm.
And so I can't imagine the damage they're going to do. I mean, one thing that could happen is that a huge number of AI tools are just going to basically not comply. Europeans won't be able to use them. And so Europeans will be the only people in the world not making the advancements that are possible with AI tools.
Mhm.
And so that's one possibility. Another one is that the tools will comply, so that they can gain access to the European market. And yet another one, the best case scenario is that Europe, basically becomes a barrier to entry for foreign AI tools in Europe. Uh, European made AI tools are favored. I think that might be nice for AI companies. France is actually in the lead in terms of Europe for AI funding and for the startup scene. So that might be good for France and its AI industry.
Mhm.
So I don't know. I don't know where that's going. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. But
Yeah.
I also don't know how the Europeans would stop its use. I mean, they can stop it for
There's that too.
universities and law-abiding organizations, but for
Right, but you
individuals,
can't stop in all the places, as we talked
right,
about in the kind of the previous
right.
story as well. There's only so much,
Although
influence and
you've
control you
noticed,
can
I know
get.
you're a Perplexity user. You've noticed that they now don't allow you to use VPNs.
Oh,
Have you detected
no,
that?
because I'm usually using it on my home computer. I'm not running a
Yeah,
VPN on here all the time, so I haven't noticed that.
it
So
popped
when
up
you're
like
running a
a week
VPN,
ago.
it says no.
It says
Oh,
nope, you
interesting.
can't use a VPN. So I turn off the VPN, which is a problem, right? I don't want to turn off my VPN.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But like
Well,
it's
especially you're
becoming
doing a lot of traveling.
yeah,
Yeah, that's so interesting.
yeah, yeah.
And is that in your estimation, is that for kind of what we're talking about here to
I
kind of
mean,
adhere to some of these rules so that, hey, we're not allowing people to get around your
yeah,
regulations. See, we're
I don't
doing a
know
good
what
thing.
Perplexity is doing. I mean,
Yeah.
I guess I
Yeah. I
assumed
wonder
that
what.
they were just doing it on their own because they know that foreign actors were using it for malicious purposes or whatever, and so they just set that up uh, on their own. But I
Yeah.
don't know that. I really don't know what drove them to do that.
Yeah. That is so interesting. I'm like
Yeah.
trying to.
It's getting harder and harder to use VPNs. It's, Google will challenge you like every 10 minutes and make
Yeah.
you find the crosswalks and the motorcycles, which drives me
Yes.
nuts. And
Well,
and I
an
need
AI can solve
to
that for
blow
us.
right
It's
past
like,
that, right?
yeah,
AI is
piece
way
of
better at
cake.
proving it's human than humans are.
Exactly. So true. Couple more stories here.
Yeah.
Amazon continuing to develop its AI Alexa product has now
Yeah.
reportedly postponed its launch until 2025.
Yeah.
Technical challenges along the way.
Hmm.
And really just the greatest hits of AI challenges, slow response times, hallucinations, difficulty with
Hmm.
basic tasks that
Yeah.
Alexa had previously handled well, which
Yes.
just reminds me of the assistant Gemini transition,
Right.
which has
Right.
been kind of noisy and weird.
Yeah.
It's like, no, we
Yeah.
want you to use this new thing, but it can't do so much that assistant
Right.
could do before it.
Yeah.
So,
And I think they're talking about Alexa eventually becoming agentic, which means you basically would tell it, I really want to take my spouse on a nice date. Can you just, and I have no time. Can you just like
set it up.
find a great thing to do, find a restaurant, make the reservation, pay for it with a credit card, like, and just without even telling them the details, just give them the goal and then
Yeah.
have it go do it, right? So that's years away, but that's probably where that sort of thing is going. It also should have characteristics of the swarming technology that I told you about. There are multiple
Mm-hmm.
tools, by the way, that already exist that they're semi-swarming technologies. They basically allow some coordination between different agents, and so I think that for Alexa will be ultimately how it should work. I mean, it should basically, you say, oh, what's the give it some question. It'll go, that's perfect for Wolfram Alpha, and it'll go to the
Mm-hmm.
Wolfram Alpha agent and just use Wolfram Alpha pixie dust to come back with the answer. Or actually,
Right.
that's something that would be best handled by a search of the current news. And but to have an all-purpose thing, it's basically ChatGPT but not as good. That's
Mm-hmm.
not
Mm-hmm.
that's not going to end well for Alexa users.
Yeah. Did you, in the world that wasn't that long ago, but at this point seems a little distant, of the I've got Google Homes in every room, or I've got
Mhm.
Amazon Echoes in every room.
Yeah,
Like, has that persisted for you? I mean, you do a lot of travel, and
yeah,
you're very much a digital nomad, as
yes.
you are known
Hmm.
for.
Hmm.
So I doubt you're bringing an Echo along with you everywhere you go. At this
We
point, is
used
it
to.
phased out, or do you?
No, we used to. We don't anymore. But
Yeah.
we traveled, I think, for like 5 years with an Amazon Echo,
Oh,
and
okay.
when we got a new one, we gave our old one to some friends in Italy, and that was before Amazon Echo was even in Italy, so they were the only people in Italy with an Amazon Echo. But yeah, we used to travel with one. Nowadays we don't. We just we're just using we're using, I mostly use
Phone.
Perplexity for those things, and I
Yeah.
use the voice, so that I have the app on my iPhone, and I just use the
Yeah.
voice. You press and hold, and ask the query, and it comes back with an answer that's usually better than anything the Echo would give me. So
Yeah.
we just don't want to. It's another thing we could eliminate that we don't have to carry the weight of.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, indeed.
but we
Yeah,
certainly
that
be
was kind
useful.
of I was curious about that because like we do have the Google Homes in every room, and our
I mean,
usage of it has just gone way down.
yeah,
Primarily because it stopped being as useful as it used to be. It used to
right.
be a lot more accurate, and I keep
Hmm.
hoping or wondering like, is there going to be a next wave of okay now we've brought in Gemini. Gemini does these things better, which I don't believe is
Hmm.
necessarily the case right now.
Right.
But will that happen and will that come back, or are we just again so used to the device we already have and
I mean,
like
I
you
think
say, voice
I
queries to
would
the
guess
phone?
that, yeah, I would guess that half the Amazon Echoes that are out there are just there because they just keep on working and they use them for oven
Yeah,
timers, right?
totally. It's so
I'm
true.
boiling
Yes.
some eggs and just like, give me an alarm when the eggs are done.
Yeah. Or what time
And
is it?
so,
Or play me some
but I
music.
use my
Yeah.
Apple Watch for that because I do a lot of bread baking and I use timers all the time. And I just use my Apple Watch for that. Right?
Hmm.
So I think wearables is right now it's like the smartphones are replacing the Echo appliance, but I think wearables will, especially glasses. So
Yeah.
when I'm wearing Ray-Ban Meta glasses, I'm not currently owning Ray-Ban Meta glasses. I owned them for a while and currently
Hmm.
don't, but that's like way better than Alexa for random queries, because it's just on you. It's like you don't have to
Yeah.
be in the same
It's
room or
there.
whatever. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. I still have not checked out the Ray Bans. I'm super curious.
you'd love
Probably
them.
at
I
this
mean,
point. Yeah.
you should wait for the next one. That's what I'm
That's
doing.
exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah,
Yeah. I think at this point, I'm probably just will wait for the next one
yeah,
and see what it's all about. But I've heard
yeah.
really great things. And I do agree with you. I do
Great.
think that the kind of distant kind of end point for a lot of this is something along those lines. I don't know if it's that everybody is wearing glasses because there are a lot of people that'll be resistant to just that fact.
Yeah.
Um, but who knows where that technology leads
You know,
to, right?
I think it will. I mean, of course, there will be a million different options, but I think the main option will definitely be glasses. I mean, one data point. This is the problem with Humane Pen. This is the problem with all these things that pin to your clothes or some non-glasses AI wearable, which is
Yeah,
that this is a new behavior. Like the number of people who wear glasses every day is something like 5 billion people in the world wear glasses
it's a lot of
already,
people.
right?
Hmm.
People wear sunglasses, they wear prescription glasses, and I know people who wear Ray-Ban Meta glasses who have perfect vision. They don't have a prescription. They just wear the glasses because they want that thing.
Yeah,
And you'll never, the problem with the AI pens of the world is you'll never do better than something that's right in front of your eyes, right? For AR and
hmm,
right next to your ears. Like you can't do better than that. If you got a camera and you're doing multimodal AI, which I'm guessing that the next Ray-Ban Meta glasses will use multimodal AI that uses video. Right now they'll take a picture and they'll use that for the AI. I think the future it'll be just video, right? Processing the
hmm.
video like the Google demo that they did at the recent. Well, both OpenAI and Google did videos about
Yep.
multimodal AI, but basically that's you basically turn your head to look what your attention is all about your gaze and which way your face is pointed, right? That's
Hmm.
the thing you're paying attention to is the thing you're looking at and the thing you're pointing your head toward. The glasses go with you on that journey, right?
For
And they
sure.
can detect your gaze, and so
There's no
you're
extra
never
step there.
no
Yeah.
pin or watch or anything will ever be better than that. So glasses are the perfect form factor for AI wearables, I think, and I don't think there's any way to get away from that.
Yep. Yep. And we're seeing more development on the miniaturization, which has long been
Yeah,
the real challenge there. And
yeah, the
I'm
batteries are a
sure
big
the
big deal.
battery technology,
Yeah,
that's a really big deal. Yeah. Be curious to see where that all leads.
yeah.
Mike, it's always a pleasure to get the chance to talk to you about all this
Pleasure was
stuff
all
and
mine,
just
Jason.
hang out in general
Yes,
and live
right.
vicariously through you
Yes,
staring at a beach right now. Every time
yes.
I talk to you, you're in a different part of the world. So that's the
Yeah,
way I want to live.
they'll never
That
catch
sounds
me.
great.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. Well, Mike, you're awesome to hang out with machinesociety.ai. Also an awesome writer. For those of you who
Thank you.
are not following Mike's work, definitely head over to there, machinesociety.ai, subscribe to the newsletter. And then, of course, your work can be found in a lot of other places. But if you head
Mhm.
there, you can find all those places
Yes.
through that location. Yeah, right on. Thank you, Mike.
All
This
right.
has been a lot of fun.
Thank you.
Yeah, and everybody who's watching the show, really the main thing you need to know about what we're doing here is just go to aiinside.show. That is our place on the web where you can find all of the different, ways to subscribe. I'm vamping while I pull it up. Ways to subscribe. We've got all of our episodes, audio and video. Everything is kind of neatly organized and color coded to the show. It took a while to get it all together, but anyways, that's where you go to subscribe. And if you want to go a little bit deeper, you can support us on Patreon. That's patreon.com/AI Inside Show. And we have a lot of, nice perks if you do that. You get ad-free shows, Discord community, you get some regular hangouts. If you are an executive producer level, then you get an AI Inside t-shirt, as well as being called out at the end of every show, like Dr. Do, Jeffrey Maricini, WPVM 103.7 in Asheville, North Carolina, Paul Lang, and Ryan Newell are 5 amazing executive producers. We just can't thank you enough for your support of what we do each and every week here on AI Inside. Jeff Jarvis, of course, returning once again next Wednesday. We'll have another new episode then. Until then, everybody take care of yourselves, and we'll see you next time on another episode of AI Inside. Bye, everybody.